Asbury, and I'm with the American Institutes for Research. We have the honor and privilege, I'm combining privilege and pleasure at the same time there, to host and manage the CS for All Teachers community. And we're super excited for this evening because we were approached by a number of wonderful partners and champions for this AP CSP course who talked about really wanting to have a chance for us to get together and celebrate a little bit in advance of the first ever official AP CSP exam, which is coming up on Friday. Ruth Farmer, who has been dubbed by one of her esteemed co-hosts here as Chief Evangelist for CS for All, is going to be our facilitator tonight. And I'm going to turn things over with her momentarily, but I do just want to ask a couple of favors, and that is we're so glad to have so many of you here. We know this is after school and an evening time where you may have a lot of other things that are happening at the same time. So we do just request that you mute your line if you're not speaking. There may be times where Ruth is either calling on guests to share their words of wisdom and ideas, or even opening up the floor for general questions or comments. But if you're not prompted for that, we do just ask that you mute your line. If you're on a telephone, you can just do that directly on your phone. If you're connected on your computer, you should see a phone or microphone icon at the top, where there's the top toolbar, that is, and there's a drop-down menu that you're allowed to mute things. I don't want to take microphone privileges away from everyone, because we do want this to be an opportunity for folks to be able to share generally, but I just hope that everyone will help to make this a little bit easier by keeping those things muted in the meantime. So thanks for joining us, but I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Ruth, and she's going to run the show from here. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, and hello everybody. Welcome. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, and happy May Day. I am so happy to see so many of you online, and so excited about the numbers we're seeing for Friday, and what an accomplishment. And I know Jan will talk more about the history of development of this course, but in terms of the impact that having this course exists in the schools, I really think it's important to acknowledge how meaningful it is that we've used the structure of the school system to create something that is going to enable so many more kids to learn this content and works with the system. So many efforts try to be like, let's go outside the system, let's do something after school, let's do something different. But this is really institutionalizing computing into the lives of so many kids, and you should all be very proud of yourselves for that. So I do want to share a couple of little things about Computer Science for All. I, as many of you may know, previously led Computer Science for All for the White House for the Office of Science and Technology Policy under President Obama. And did a lot of work there with the community to really grow the footprint of the kinds of organizations and the kinds of schools that were participating. So that work is continuing, and I encourage every one of you to work with your schools to join up your district with the Computer Science for All Consortium. It's also a great place for you to go to get connections and content, and it's really a big tent organization that's open to everyone. I really strongly believe that Computer Science for All is going to be sustainable when it's owned locally by people like yourselves, by teachers, by school districts, by principals, and really owned and loved locally. So jump into csforall.org and jump into that conversation. They have a very active Slack channel as well. And they also have office hours, so that if you have questions about your pathway or how you're implementing CS in your school district, you can call and talk to an expert for free. So that's just my little plug there. Second thing is I'm going to put this into the chat, and I think I already did once and I'll do it again, that I published a post today on Huffington Post about this momentous event on Friday, and added a link there for a Google form for everyone to complete as part of a timeline. So what I'm trying to build is a timeline that visualizes all the people that have contributed to the development and implementation of CSP. So if I'll put it back in the chat again, but we're definitely looking to get, I started teaching CSP, I went to a training for CSP, I helped develop or pilot a course we'd love to get everybody's milestones and thoughts into this, basically a data visualization that I'm hoping I can get one of my very crafty students to build. So with that, I will turn it over to Jan Cuny, and if those of you may or may not know Jan Cuny, but she is really the woman behind all of this work for so long. And she, I've known Jan since 2004 and watched as she has worked doggedly to help build a inclusive computer science platform for our nation. And so I will turn it over to Jan.
Thank you, Ruth. So I wanted to start by thanking all of the teachers who are online. This is Teacher Appreciation Week. I know this because my husband is a teacher and he's been appreciated so far this week. But I wanted to thank you for all that you do with your students all the time, every day. And I want to especially thank today, because of the topic here, all of those teachers who very bravely stepped forward to teach CS principles in one of its early pilots, or even in the pilot in the actual first courses of this year. It's really a lot to ask someone to do, to step up and teach a brand new course like this, and the response has been amazing. As you can see from the slide, there are over 2,500 schools across the nation that have been audited and they're teaching CS principles this year, which is a really amazing number for a brand new course like this. If you look at the next slide, you can see that there are teachers nationwide teaching. There are teachers in every state who have been audited and are teaching CS principles. 324 teachers in California. Of course, California is a really big state, but that's a pretty impressive number. New York has 228. Florida has 194. These are really big numbers. And I think that all of you deserve a real thanks for the country for stepping forward to do this amazing work and start this course. I hope that you feel appreciated. To look at kind of the history of this course, we started about 9 years ago at the National Science Foundation. I had been hired to broaden participation in computer science, and it became really clear to me that broadening participation could not happen at the college level where we were comfortable working, but that it really had to happen in K-12. And that was because if you looked at the data, particularly the fall off in women's interest in computer science was shown by students showing up at college and as they entered their freshman year. So clearly we had to go back and see what we could do to fix that. One of the first things that we did was talk to the College Board about creating a new course, a better course than CSA. CSA is not a bad course, but it's not a good course for the kind of inclusive, broad participation that we were trying to engender. We wanted women to take the course. We wanted students from low incomes who had never worked with a computer and didn't have one at home to be comfortable taking the course. And that's not necessarily a year's worth of Java. So we wanted something that was much more engaging, relevant to students' lives so that all kinds of students understood the empowerment that would come from learning computing, and it was inspiring too. When I started computing, I'm really dating myself, the computers were as big as a room, and they were, you had that feeling they could do anything with them, but they didn't actually do anything that you were particularly interested in having them do. But there was this potential there that you wanted to help release and help use creatively. And so I'd like to get students to feel that same sense of inspiration. So at the first meeting that we had with the College Board teachers, they had all of the faculty at the university who teach first courses that the CSA course would take the place of. And they did not want to give up CSA, but the College Board, interestingly, decided to teach an additional course, CS Principles. And CS Principles is different than their other courses because it's not intended to mimic the first course for majors at college. It's intended to mimic the first course for non-majors. So it was really a leap of faith for the College Board as well. But I think it's turned out really well. There were an incredible number, more than thousands of faculty and teachers who were involved in creating this course, in being on the commissions, being on the advisory committee, helping pilot the course. It was really an incredibly impressive effort. Also a lot of organizations joined the effort. Code.org, most notably, had this great marketing campaign, really ignited kind of a national interest in computer science. Project Lead the Way is teaching a CSP course. The National Math and Science Initiative, NMSI, is. NC WIT has been involved. Teach for America has been involved. Many organizations have been involved. Many companies have been involved in donating and foundations. Info Foundation USA has done a lot in promoting teacher professional development around these courses. So I think it's a huge effort by thousands of people, and it's really paid off. It is the largest initial AP exam offering in history, which is a pretty big accomplishment. If you look at this slide, when we started in 83 and 84, I think, were the first CSAP courses, and that was CSA, and there was a second course, CSAB. And they had about 7,000, a little bit less than 7,000 students taking those combined courses. The CSAB course ended, and it was just CSA. And that kind of limped along for a long time with about 20,000 students. And then in the last 4 or 5 years has really taken off and is the fastest growing AP course, although I bet that CS Principles beats it next year as the fastest growing course. At any rate, the two courses together this year are expected to have 115,000 total exam takers, which is really an amazing number if you think of where we were just 5 years ago with 20,000. So it was an incredible effort that's been amazingly successful. When we started this effort, I was really hired at the National Science Foundation to work on broadening participation. So if you look at the next slide, it looks at the demographics of students. We're really hoping that these courses attract a lot of women and attract a lot of underrepresented minorities and become accessible to many students with disabilities. We don't have good numbers on the course yet because kids haven't actually taken the test yet, but when those numbers come out, I'm really looking forward to seeing them. If you look at the minority enrollment in 2016 and compare it to the kids who have currently, if you look at the CSA in 2016 versus the CSP in 2016, so those were still the pilots, the percentage of black students participating had gone up by more than double, and the percentage of Hispanic students had also gone up a little bit. But I'm hoping that those numbers continue to rise and that this course really fulfills its promise as being a creative way to, in a very broad and inclusive manner, introduce all kids to computer science. To give you some idea of kind of the magnitude of these numbers and why we're all so impressed with them, if you look at individual states, in Alabama, they expect 1,400 students to take the CSP exam. And that's compared to last year, only 300 students in the state took the CSA exam. So that's almost not quite five times as many students taking the CSP exam this year as took CSA last year. That's a pretty amazing number. In California, they expect 10,000 students will take the CSP exam this year. There are 324 schools in California teaching it, but still, that's a lot of students. It's a fifth of all the students who are taking the exam nationwide. In New York City, which had 111 schools, there are approximately 5,000 students who are going to take it. So this are pretty astounding statistics, and they really speak to an amazing national effort that involved really thousands of people at the working on this to make this happen. It had great support from the last administration. It has great support from many members of Congress. It's really a nonpartisan issue, and I expect that it will continue to grow until we reach our goal of having every kid have the opportunity to take this course. So thank you all for your time, and we'll switch to the next speaker.
Okay, so I'm very happy to let you know that we have a very special guest with us today, and Megan Smith was the third CTO, Chief Technology Officer of the United States, and former assistant to President Obama. She's an entrepreneur and an engineer, was a VP at Google for 11 years, CEO of Planet Out in the early days of the web, and has worked on early smartphones, co-founded the Malala Fund, and now serves on the board of MIT. And she's also someone that I have had so many good conversations with and so much time with during my time at the White House. What a privilege to work with her. And so she's going to share a few thoughts with us. Megan?
Hey, Ruth, thank you. And Jan, what an amazing moment. So many incredible people are on this call. I just want to thank the two of you and everybody who's been part of kind of what Tom Khalil in our OSCP team used to call the all hands on deck work that it takes to lift this kind of initiative. And it was an honor to get to serve as CTO. We were embedded in the Office of Science Technology Policy. Ruth was there, and we worked closely with Jan at NSF and many other people, together with the President's Science Advisor, Dr. Holdren. And, we focused on a lot of capacity building and entrepreneurship, and so this was at the center of how do we capacity build the American people, both our young people with programs like Computer Science for All and the Nation of Makers movements that are interconnected here, as well as things like Tech Hire and advanced manufacturing programs and all that for adults. I was just in Appalachia, and again, to Jan's point of how bipartisan this is with Congressman Hal Rogers from Appalachia, Congressman Ro Cannon from Silicon Valley, with coal miners graduating from Code Boot Camp and starting to work on really extraordinary solutions that they were interested in bringing to the table and starting to participate in the economies of the future that talent deserves to be part of. Everyone on this call, it's so appropriate to be Teacher Appreciation Week because every teacher who stepped up and sort of integrated this new coursework and made sure that there was an opportunity to bring this kind of learning and capability and confidence and creative confidence to your students in this new, much more modern way. This is heroic work that you're doing, and I really thank you. My mom was a pre-K and kindergarten teacher in Buffalo, New York, so I especially appreciate the Muskogee Creek Tribe folks who are doing robotics and Head Start with some of their partners at the littlest levels that people have, but all the way in this more senior group with our APs. 9 out of 10 parents want coding taught at school, and how incredible that we're going to have this number of students taking the AP exams later this week. It's a moment in the country, and you guys are the ones who have made that happen with the backbone support of everybody around you. It's the teachers who do it. I was lucky to be at Google with Ed Lu, who's an astronaut, and one of my favorite things that he did was when he was going to go on the shuttle for the first time, he actually reached out to every teacher he could find from his whole life of learning through pre-K through 12. And his key college teachers, and invited them to the launch as a thank you. And I think that it's such a great illustration of, what our extraordinary teachers do and how you feel the whole future of the country, and really give the confidence that folks deserve. I love the attention in this new course to diversity and outreach. We really need everybody to have these skills. There's so many jobs open and so many challenges. We were able to do a lot of work on data science in the administration and really bring solutions, not only in some of the more traditional places that you see a lot of data science work at National Institute of Health and with the Precision Medicine Initiative, or NASA, of course, with the amazing Journey to Mars and other work that they're doing, and the Pluto work and Discovery work, but really into the Department of Justice and with the data-driven justice and police data initiatives, which I would note that some of our teacher colleagues were able to get high schoolers involved in all kinds of cities, especially being able to see Grace, a 10th grader in New Orleans, teaching the chief of police coding and data science as they explored data sets around officer-involved shooting, use of force data, all kinds of justice data, and working together collaboratively to try to have more transparency and capability on very, very hard challenges, and have young people involved in using computer science and creativity to solve hard problems together with others in the community. So, I would encourage you guys to, continue to push on inclusion across the board, because the more capable we can make these students better. You guys are doing that. Sometimes I wish that computer science came from the art department or from the English department or from the other departments, so the students could understand that it's really related to everything, not just math and science, which they sometimes ghettoize it into. That it really is a capability that, like critical thinking is computational thinking, and it can be something that they can use as they think about playing whole orchestra in their life on the things they care about. Just talking to someone today about Bletchley Park, and we had a great moment with President Obama where it seems so long ago when we did the code, hour of code work with him in 2014 in the early days of this phase of the journey to where you guys are this week. There's kind of a great thing when you are taking the president to do an activity or something, you usually walk with him to do some final briefing. And so I actually picked him up at the Oval Office, and Prince William had just left the Oval, and I said, Mr. President, what we're about to do has a connection to William. And he said, oh, what's that? And I said, I don't know if you've seen the film Imitation Game, but the story of Bletchley Park. But William's wife, the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate, her grandmother and great aunt were code breakers at Bletchley Park. And in fact, 2/3 of those who are part of the code breaking teams that are credited with using basically math analytics and the beginnings of computing to save 11 million lives, shorten the war by 2 years, were women. And so being able to tell the stories of Grace Hopper, of Katherine Johnson, of Bletchley Park, as we go into this and remind kids that such an extraordinary history of coding has come from women and men, people of color, everybody on the planet working together to bring this capability to the world is part of our heritage. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody. And again, it's all hands on deck. Let's bring more people in and drive for kind of creative confidence for all Americans in all sectors, not only literature, arts, but also in these data science, computer science realms. So thank you guys, and congratulations on this incredible milestone.
Thank you, Megan. That was great, and it's always inspiring to hear from Megan. I was lucky to have her speak at a number of the CS-related events that we had in the White House. So next I'm going to do a short interview, Q&A, fireside chat style thing with a teacher, Johanna Gay, who is an AP-CST teacher in Los Angeles. She works at the Susan Miller Dorsey High School in Los Angeles, and that's a majority-minority school. She has many Black and African-American students and is teaching CSP. So to start, is it Johanna or Joanna?
It's Johanna.
Johanna, okay, great. So I would love it if you would just tell us how you ended up coming to teach CSP. How did you get there?
First, good evening, everyone. My story, I'm assuming, is like many. I'm a math teacher by trade here at Dorsey High School in Los Angeles. I actually lucked upon teaching ECS about 5 years ago. It was based on a field trip. I had to go on a field trip with another teacher who was teaching ECS at the time, and that teacher left. And when that teacher left, just because I went on the field trip, then I got it. And so I started teaching ECS, thanks in large part to the people at UCLA who gave us the curriculum for ECS at Dorsey High School, and then it kind of spiraled into teaching Intro to Computers and then AP-CSP this year.
Fantastic. So can you share some stories of impact that the course has had on students taking it in your community?
So I teach at a minority school. We are one of 2 schools in LA that's primarily African American. So we are about 60% African American and about 40% Latino. And so my classes, I have one Intro to Computer Science class, and I have an AP CSP class. They're 100% minority. And so that's just the demographics of the school. So I do love this course. I love what it offers. I love the fact that even though it is 2017, over half of my students still don't have a computer in their homes or internet outside of the use of their phones. And so it just opens up an entirely different world for them.
Great. So I actually asked some of the girls in Aspirations in Computing if they were taking the course, and this girl responded that I just asked for her impressions of CSP, and she said that so the topics covered ranged from cybersecurity to binary. The one that made the greatest impression on me was the idea that everything in our world is made up of bits. This has changed how I see my daily activities, such as making a phone call, and how I see the world. So I think that's really reflective of what you just said about your kids. So what's the most positive thing you've seen in this experience? Is there a particular aha moment that some of your kids have had?
I think for me, as a teacher and a math teacher, where normally as a math teacher, even though they don't want you to be, you are really in control and students are looking for you to feed them information. I think one of the overwhelming aha moments for me is how well students do when it comes to coding or when it comes to this class. So I can remember when I started in ECS, we didn't even have computers at the time. And even when we didn't have computers and we were working on paper, students were just so engaged with the new concepts, with problem solving and just doing the work, you know, being computers themselves, understanding binary and the languages that the computer speaks, and, you know, understanding how to program. I think that's an overwhelming aha moment for me. One specifically is the class that I have now, my AP CSP class, started with me as 8th graders. So we have a program here at Dorsey High School where we go out to our middle school feeders and elementary school feeders, and we teach them computer science. And so my 10th grade class now were 8th graders with me, and they've been with me for 3 years. And this year, they actually went out to one of our middle school feeders, and they taught them Scratch programming. So they taught them from beginning to end how to program in Scratch. And just seeing them be able to teach the curriculum, knowing how well they're able to do it, many of them better than I do it, I think is an aha moment for me. So I think that that's something that CSP definitely provides. It provides an opportunity for students really to collaborate with themselves and really take the information that they learn and do far better than the teachers in the class.
So I think you're dead on with that. The activity of teaching other kids is a great way to solidify this for students, and that's fantastic. So any particular piece of advice that you would give other teachers who are thinking about taking this on for next fall?
Oh, there's so many things. So, of course, there are a lot of things that I have learned. For one, for me, I am a teacher who plans every day to every minute. And so being flexible and fluid with this course is something that I have learned to be. Also, just to have a lot of fun. I know sometimes in school, our students don't have enough fun and they don't enjoy the class. And so for them to be able to enjoy the class from day one to the end has been breathtaking for me. So I enjoy the fact that they enjoy it. I enjoy the fact that they can come in class and they can truly run it without me. And then being able to connect computer science to every genre or every core class that they're taking. So there's something that they could do in English in my class, or something that they can connect in math in my class is something that they can connect in science, and for them to to figure out that those connections can be made is also an eye-opener for me. And so now my students in my AP class almost run the school. So they're like the geek squad, I guess, for a lack of a better term. And so they set up the projectors in other teachers' classes, and they tell them, you know, there's an easier way for you to do this. And some of my kids are running a blog for the Magnet. And so for them to be able to work right now in some fields that potentially they can work in and earn money in, I think that's another great part for this class. And so as teachers, I think you have to allow your students just to have the freedom to be able to work and almost kind of co-design their own course so they continue to have fun.
Well, and that is right in line with the way technology is so fast-moving anyway. So, you know, you're never going to teach the same course year after year with technology. It's always going to be moving a little bit. So I'm going to open it up for questions, but first I'm going to move to the next slide so that you can all grab that link and enter our prize drawing. And we're going to draw randomly, and then we'll notify the winners on Friday. Maybe we'll tweet at you. So does anyone have questions for our speaker, or questions for anyone else here on the call? Or if you want to react to something, that's great too. Do I need to unmute everyone, Melissa, or no?
No, people just need to make sure to unmute their own lines if they'd like to jump in.
Okay, well, I have another question. I'd be curious to know how, what strategies people are using to make sure to recruit a diversity of kids into the class. Is there anything particular that has worked really well? I know from my work with teachers in the past that actively inviting students to enroll in the class is one great way to get them interested in participating. Does anyone have any input on that? You guys are all a very quiet bunch. Okay, well, I'm guessing we, okay, so someone says, Fran says she created it as an elective for their juniors and seniors. That's really useful. Johanna, do you have any recruitment strategies?
Well, again, one that my high school uses is that we really try to go down to the middle schools and the elementary, and we try to create buzz there for computer science, offering a pathway by the time that they get to high school. And so that's helped with recruitment, not only in the class, but to the school. And so even my 9th grade class, I have about 35 in the freshman class. Many of them are here, particularly for the computer science and taking AP computer science. And so that is one way. Another way, I think, is to really stress how much fun they're going to have. So when we're doing our AP Rush Week, you know, a lot of the AP teachers talk about how much work it is and how strenuous it is, and I'm the only AP teacher that gets to talk about how much fun it is and how much time they're going to spend on it, and you're going to, talking to the parents, ask them to get off the computer, tell them to put it away, tell them to do their work, and they're actually doing their work. And so I think to stress the fun level, to stress, you know, how they are going to co-design a class with you, those kind of elements might get some kids in your class.
Great. So we'd love to hear the voices of some of the people throwing out ideas. Anyone want to unmute and jump in?
Hey, Ruth, it's Allison Derbenwick from Oracle.
Yay. Hi, Allison.
How are you? I have a question for Joanna, but it's not about recruiting. Is now a good time to ask it, or shall I wait?
Sure, go ahead.
Johanna, I think I heard you say you started teaching the class on paper without computers.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, or did I misunderstand what you were saying?
No, so I started teaching ECS, which was on paper and not using the computer, so it wasn't the AP-CSP, but really CSP because it encompasses so many things. Like they have to really understand problem solving, and they have to go through, you know, the steps and the processes, which is algorithm. There are so many things that you can actually do that are not on the computer that we did spend a lot of time not using the computer because we simply didn't have it. And so I saw Dr. Jan on one of the Champion of Changes links that you all just sent. They had a terrific curriculum through UCLA, ECS, Exploring Computer Science, and through that curriculum we just had to take them through, and they had to act like computers, or they had to tell me what they thought the output of the computer would be when they gave a certain input, and yes, that was not done on the computer.
Fabulous. Follow-up question, do you think that makes it easier to teach a class like AP-CSP in schools that may not have all the resources of some of the more wealthy suburban schools?
I wouldn't suggest it or advocate it for it, but certainly you don't have to, you don't need a computer to teach those tenets of the class. So where you needed a computer to, say, do programming or to teach some of these high-level programming languages, you don't need it for problem solving. And so I think that it's a start. You know, again, I would not suggest it, but it's definitely a start. I think you can definitely, say, get a club up and running or get in a class like the ECS up and running without the computers, and then hopefully, like my students had to fundraise, and they really had to bombard the district in order to get computers, and that's what they did. But the interest was created without that. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for, I'd say, one or two additional questions in the next 3 minutes. So questions or comments from the audience? We know you can do this unmuting thing.
Go right ahead, Kay Bozer. It looks like Kay Bozer was wanting to chime in. Be sure to unmute yourself before you start chatting, please.
Okay, we're not hearing her somehow. I see one question. Any suggestions for new teachers teaching the subject? I think we sort of already answered that, but anyone else have something to add related to new teachers? One final thing I want to throw out there for all of you is there's so much professional development available this summer, so please spread the word to your peers. There's lots and lots going on. There's also matching funding available from Donors Choose. So if you put a project on Donors Choose to get funding for your professional development, you can get that matched. And Cam Ogletree says, start the digital portfolio performance tasks early. That's also a great piece of advice. Jan, anything you want to throw out there?
Well, I was just going to suggest that there are lots of different PD options this summer. Most of the endorsed courses from the College Board have special PD sections this summer that are happening all over the country. There's PD Week, where quite a few of them are happening simultaneously in a week in June. And I was also going to mention the Donors Choose option that you've already mentioned. There's a list of PD that you can sign up around the country, options from around the country. You can sign up for them and then hope for crowdfunding and Infosys is matching all those donations. So last year, almost all of the teachers who tried that option were fully funded and got to go to the professional development.
Fantastic. Okay, to wrap things up, I would like to say thank you to everyone who spoke on this webinar and all the people who participated. Thank you to all the teachers that have put in all of these hours to teach this new course and get themselves trained and encourage their students. We're looking for some great outcomes on Friday. I also want to remind you to enter the drawing, which I had the link up a moment ago. I'll put it back up really quickly. And then I think there's a couple of upcoming events on here. Do you want to talk about those, Melissa? Oh, here's the details of CS for All Teachers. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So we do have a couple of webinars through the summer that are still being finalized in terms of their specific, but I'm going to add into the chat window the link to our event calendar on the CS for All Teachers site that we hope that you will bookmark and visit that regularly. If you're a member, you also will get notifications about upcoming events. There's a couple of great ones that we're going to be sharing some things out, and once we have those dates finalized, they'll be up and ready to go. We also hope that you will follow us on Twitter. We share lots of great information there, and we're just so thankful for everyone who joined tonight and helped to put together a terrific celebration. It is amazing to be part of this community and so amazing to see how much progress that has been made. So thank you all. We hope that you will stay connected with us. And oh, one last thing that I would mention, because someone asked about this and getting access to the chat. We don't archive the chat separately, but we will be posting the archive